So just a quick revision about how to use Beatcraft for this project. I think we're all pretty good at opening a project, inserting instruments, making patterns. For my planner, you'll see that I needed something called pattern 1. I needed an opening fill. I wanted to have a sort of a small fill, so I call that fill 1.1. I wanted a sort of slightly bigger fill that I called 1. Then I've got pattern 2A, 2B, because that was a 2-bar pattern. And then I've got fill 2, which is a more exciting fill, I think. Oh, no, it's a less exciting fill. It's a bit softer. Then I had a thing called final crash, and then I think a thing called closing fill. So I've made a sort of a plan for what pieces I need. And so I made these in Beatcraft. So here's my pattern 1. It's just the straight rock pattern. Kick on 1 and 3. Hi-hat and snare on 2 and 4, and quavers on the closed hi-hat. And pattern 1.1 is very similar. It's got a double snare. Pattern 2 is similar, but it goes with pattern 2B. Anyway, so these are sort of versions, yeah? Fill 1 is bum, bop, 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 bop. That's fill 1-1. Fill 2 is bum, bop, 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 ba-da-dum. See, they're almost the same. Fill 2A is ba-ba, ba-ba, bum, ba-ba, ba-ba, bum, bop-ba. And fill 2B is ba-ba, 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 ba-ba. Yeah? So you can see how they're all similar but slightly different. I've pretty much used the ones from the rock drum kit sheet. So they're all my patterns. This is better. You can notice I've done some really good dynamics in my snare part. I probably should slightly edit these closed hi-hat sounds to be a bit more subtle. I'm going to make every second one a bit softer. So it sort of goes bop, 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 you know, by just changing the 65 to, or you could use the slider. Anyway, so I could probably do a little bit of improvement here to just make everything a little bit more accurate, you know, in terms of loudness. Okay, I'm going to drag up this divider, and down here in the sequencer, I've made what looks like the middle section of my song. Oh yeah, here we go, the chorus, pattern 2A, pattern 2B, pattern 2A, pattern 2B, pattern 2A, pattern 2B, pattern 2A, fill 2. That's what that is, and then I render it to audio. And then you have to ask, Wave is probably better because it's bigger and more high quality, but you can use MP3. Typically, you want to render the audio tails if it's something like a final crash. Experiment. Wrapping cuts them off really sort of suddenly, and render lets them hang on. I'm going to wrap so that my chorus is exactly 8 bars long, but you could try both ways and see the difference. I'll put it in this year's one, and this is going to be a chorus, drums, drum chorus. I'll just give it some sort of name. Yeah, that's all fine. Just say go. It'll pop in. It's trying to play, but I don't want to listen to it. Okay, so now I can go back into my project and actually insert the spot, that drum kit part that I just made in here. Yeah. So sound, add sound file. Oh. Where did I put it? There's a new one. One I just made is the one I'm looking for. This one. I'm just going to de-arm that so it stops fiddling at me. So let's look at this. I've obviously made a mistake and made it a little bit too long, because it should be exactly 8 bars long. So there's something funny going on there. Or it could be that my tempo's wrong. Oh, I see, it's 10 bars long. Why is it 10 bars long? And then I've got some sort of random thing at the end. So I've obviously just made a little mistake. Okay, now it's 8 bars long. That looks better, doesn't it? Okay, silly me. I'll pop back in here and get rid of it. Go back into Beatcraft and render this one. Wrap audio tails. I'm just going to give it the same name. Yes, because I want to replace it because the other one was just a mistake, wasn't it? And then I want to go back into my Beatcraft project and give that another go. So I'll pop in here, go and get it. Still looks a bit wrong. Okay, so this is probably going to happen to you. Let's see if it's got silence at the beginning. No. All right. Let's see what's wrong with it. Why doesn't it line up? See, it seems like it's too long when it should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Should be the right length. Because I haven't mucked that up, have I? No? Okay, so what I think is wrong with it is that I need to use project tempo. Let's see if that fixed it. Oh, yes, it did. It just sort of shrunk it into the right place. So if I just do Control Z, you'll be able to see if I zoom in that it starts to not be lining up with the bars. See how at the beginning the pattern seems to line up and then gradually it gets more and more out? Because it's too big, it means it's too slow. So I could have done it manually by just shrinking the rate like this, but that would have been really annoying and boring. A quicker method is to just say use project tempo, and it should automatically shrink itself and line up perfectly. So I'm just going to zoom in here and double check the end. That looks pretty good. See how that's lining up on the beats of the bar? That's good. And if I double check the beginning, it doesn't have any junk silence at the beginning. And if I double check the end, it just seems to go all the way. See how the tail's been wrapped in the sense that it's exactly the right number of bars, which is usually the best choice. But let's just, for the sake of argument, and particularly when the tempo doesn't work, because then if you've got a tail that's hanging over, it's hard to work out exactly where the thing should finish. So I'm thinking for grade 9s and beginners, wrapping the tails is the best plan. But I will give you an example of what happens if you don't wrap them. So I'm not going to wrap them, I'm going to render them. And I'm going to call it drumkit with tail. Yeah, so you can see the difference between the two items. So if I go into my project and I try to insert that drum kit sound, it's still too long. Yes, I'm going to still double click and say use project tempo. And if we zoom in here, we should see there's a whole pile of silence on the end, and it doesn't sort of cut off as suddenly as it used to. But I'm not convinced that that's the right choice, so let me just double check the lining up. Is it lining up? Yeah, it's pretty good. Don't worry that that line's not there because it's lining up with the peak of the sound. Although if you are paranoid about it, you could. That's interesting. See the beginning of the sounds looks different. Remember the other one had a slightly different beginning? I'll just prove that. Yeah, I'm just going to add it in here so that we can compare them. See, the other one had a better start to it, but its end was much more problematic. So I still need to make that one use project tempo, and I need to make this one use project tempo. Let's see the difference between these two things. Look at that. That's very fascinating. See how that's slightly out of synchronization? And for some reason, choosing the render tails has affected the beginning of the sound. Who knows why? So there you go. My advice, therefore, is to wrap the tails, yeah, before you render.